guys, welcome back to On Your Left. Welcome to the season finale and the series finale of On Your Left, guys. Welcome to Project Potter. My name is Kyle, your host. And yeah, this is the series finale of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, guys, the Disney Plus miniseries. I don't even know where to begin, really. This was... You know what, I don't want to spoil it for the end, but if you guys haven't seen the show before, thanks for checking out Project Potter. It's a recap, and it's just a score. This is kind of one of our I don't want to say dumbed down reviews, but it's just kind of like a basic recap of the episode and a score. So yeah, thanks for checking out the channel, guys, and here we go. Okay, guys, so the series finale begins. If you guys remember last episode, Anthony Mackie opens up the case, and that's his new suit, his Cap suit, and we don't know what it looks like, and they left us on a cliffhanger. We didn't have to wait very long here. We pick right up where the Flag Smashers they've taken over like a government building or one of the buildings where they've scrambled all the devices there, and Karli's like, hey, the movement's now, it's time to act. And they're kind of waiting for Captain America to show up. They're waiting for Anthony Mackie's character to show up. So they're waiting, and Bucky's on the scene, and Anthony Mackie's on his way. He's got his new suit on, and we see him flying in from the distance. And I wasn't crazy about his wings to the suit, but then you see them in action, and it's like, oh my god, dude, great choice. So there's the Flag Smashers are trying to take down the building. So they start evacuating the building, but the Flag Smashers are kind of like blending in there as like security guards and whatnot. And so Bucky's one job is to keep the Flag Smashers in the building. We get back to that eventually, but we eventually see Anthony Mackie come in as Captain America, guys, and it's so good. It's so good. I can't even put it into words. So he breaks in through the window. I think he throws the shield first, and he knocks someone out, and then he lands, dude. And it's like this white suit, but he's got the stars and stripes down here, and it just looks sick. It looks so much different than Steve Rogers' suit and different than the John Walker suit that we saw. But that's okay because it's his own unique brand. And he's still got the Falcon glasses, and he's still got the wings. And he uses the wings with it, and I wasn't sure how I felt about that, but he's still got the star in the center, dude, and he looks so good. Anthony Mackie crushes it as Captain America. So we see the suit finally. It looks sick. He's walking around, and immediately he's talking to people, and some guy says he says some line, and he goes, "No, I'm Captain America." And I was like, let's go, dude. I was immediately in. I was 100% let's take this down. And so we saw John Walker at the end of last episode in a post-credit scene building his own shield, but he doesn't have access to vibranium, so I don't understand why he's making that shield, because it's not going to be nearly as good as a vibranium shield, which I'm sure he knew, but he's just so obsessed with being accepted and being Captain America and getting vengeance on Karli that he's like, oh, I'm gonna build my own shield. It was like an Iron Man moment, but Iron Man was doing it for the right reasons, and Iron Man was a genius, and he is just John Walker, who was just this cast off who had too much power and a super serum and made him bad. But nonetheless, we knew John Walker was coming back in here. So eventually we get to a point where Bucky's kind of walking around, and there's one big dude who's trying to leave. And I hope I kind of go over too many big segments here, guys. I did just watch the episode, but there was so much going on, and I'm going to try and cover most of it, but if I forget some things, forgive me. But yeah, Bucky's basically trying to keep an eye on the Flag Smasher, and he's working with Sharon Carter a little bit because Sharon shows up. She has a disguise at first, which is weird, and she does a Mission Impossible where she takes off the face, and they're like, Sharon, what are you doing here? And she's trying to get the band back together. And it's all right, well, that's kind of weird, but she's hanging out there. And then eventually this big dude is in the parking garage, and he's going to leave, and they're trying to escape basically. And Bucky has to so the Flag Smashers are trying to escape via helicopter. Okay, so they're all heading to the roof. Helicopter's up there. Bucky tells Sam hey man, that's your thing. Flying is your thing. He's I don't do that. But Bucky gets on a motorcycle, and he's riding around, and I'm dude, it's been too long since we had motorcycles and Captain America, and those are both back, and I'm let's go, dude. We forget about Cap, that he rides a motorcycle for a lot of it, especially in First Avenger, and it's so cool. Even Age of Ultron, when he runs through the forest, and it's he dominates that motorcycle, and he comes in and he looks like a badass, and he can throw a shield off of it and take people down. So just to get Bucky on like a sick bike, I was like, all right, dude, we're getting Cap, we're getting Bucky on a bike, like things are right in the world. And so this kind of happens, and Bucky goes after him, but the big guy is like leaving in the parking garage, and Sharon bumps into him, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you there." And that kind of distracts the guy from noticing that Bucky left the parking garage on the bike at the same time. And we're like, "Okay, cool, nice distraction." Well, it turns out that Sharon Carter put, she said it was like mercury or something, and it just melts this dude's face off in the car. And I was like, "Oh my God, Sharon, like, dude, have some chill." Like she puts it on, and he immediately crashes, and it's like you just see his face like melting off and bubbling, and I was like, oh my God, disgusting. We get into more of that in a little bit, but basically they go to like a scene where Falcon is chasing after Karli, and the other Flag Smashers get in the helicopter, and Falcon's chasing the helicopter because he's trying to track them down, and he sends out his little like beetle guy, whatever it is, Red Wing or whatever, I forget what its name is, but he's like, oh, check if anyone has pilot experience. And it scans all the people. It's really cool. It scans all the people in there. This is something that Cap did not have. So this is like an advanced Captain America. So, and Anthony Mackie does not have the super serum. We know that. But I think we learn here that he would have been like overpowered if that was the case, because we see throughout this episode he uses his wings to his advantage and his technology. So he's not as strong as Steve Rogers, but if he would have taken the super serum, it would have probably been like Superman, basically, where it's like you have way too many powers. So he's got the technology, and it's cool how he uses that to his advantage. And so he finds that there's one pilot in there. It's like this woman who's being held hostage, and he's like, oh, cool. And so he's like able to tap into like her earphone, and he's like, hey, this requires perfect timing. He's like, on the count of 5, or counting down from 5 to 1, he's like, I need you to take control of the controls in the helicopter. And she's like, okay. He's like, don't worry, you need to trust me, but this needs to be perfect timing. And so like she starts counting down, and she's like 5, 4, and it's really cool because like we see Anthony Mackie flying in, and she hits one. Anthony Mackie throws his shield into the helicopter, and he like flies after it, dude. He takes out the pilot. The helicopter starts going down, and she jumps over to the pilot seat, and she pulls up, and she saves the helicopter for the most part. And then I think eventually he takes, Anthony Mackie goes and takes like the other 2 pilots out. There's another helicopter scene. I think it's a different one. Sorry if that's the same scene. I'm mixing those up, but it's really cool because he takes both the guys out there, and they land on the bridge, and there's an amazing scene where Anthony Mackie uses his shield. He puts his shield up, and his wings come around, dude, and the helicopter literally bounces off of his wings and his shielding because he like protects them. And I was like, wow, dude, let's go. And he like opens it up, and it's like got his suit, and I'm just like, dude, this Cap rules, okay? And this Cap is different than Steve Rogers, and that's completely okay, and we get more into that in a little bit. But yeah, if I'm jumping all over the place here, guys, I'm sorry, but again, just watched it, kind of recapping as best I can. So Karli basically is trying to like lure them in. Bucky shows up at the where the Flag Smashers are kind of like hanging out, and he's going after them in a bike, and they're like, they have road barriers set up, and they're like ready for him. And then Bucky he like drives the bike into the barrier and like falls over it and takes out the guy, and he starts beating up the guy. But Karli's like, hey, we need a distraction. She's like, light it up, and they like light the Brinks truck or whatever, or the hostage vehicle on fire, or the prison transport basically, and they light that up, and the hostages inside are screaming like they're gonna die. And so Bucky uses the metal arm, and he's pulling, trying to get the people out, and he's distracted. John Walker shows up, and he's like, Karli, he's like, we're finishing this right now. And he starts fighting Karli, and his shield, as I said, it's not vibranium, so he knows that. And she starts like denting the shield and stuff, and he's like, oh no. And he starts fighting the super soldiers, and even though he's got the super serum, he's not really standing up that well. And so they're fighting, and then like eventually John gets hit on the ground, and like he's getting pounded on, and the super soldiers are like about to take him out. And on the inside of his shield, he's got like the Medal of Honor badge or whatever from his army days. And he looks at that, and he's almost having like PTSD. And I was like, oh no, dude, John Walker he's on a bad path. And so Falcon ends up saving him, and he kind of comes over, and he like looks at him like to say like, yo, I'm the real Cap, like not this like imposter over here. And so he looks at him, and Karli tries to escape, and John goes after her, and he's trying to swipe, and he's still trying to kill Karli basically because he doesn't want to talk to her. And meanwhile, Sam is trying to talk the whole time to Karli, but Karli like escapes and eventually goes up, and there's like a truck that goes over like over these like it's not like scaffolding, but it's like construction that's going on, and they're about to like put the truck down into the ground and like kill these hostages basically. We think that's about to fall, and like Anthony Mackie is busy doing something, and Bucky's busy doing something, and Bucky finally like gets the hostages out, like he pulls on the door, and they're all saved. But now the truck is about to fall, and who stops at the last second? We see the shield fall down, and it's the Captain America shield basically, and John Walker saves them. And John Walker's using his super strength to pull back the truck. And I was like, okay, John Walker, he's not fully bad. Like, he's still got a little bit of good left in him, and good for him, because he's got a choice where like he's at the top, and there's the truck, and then there's Karli, and he could get Karli, but he like kind of shakes his head, and he's like, oh, I understand what I need to do, and he saves the people in the truck. And so he could have just gone after Karli, but he's not completely bad yet, and this shows that there's some redeeming quality for John. And I was like, that John Walker, maybe he's not as bad as I thought. And so, and also John Walker does have a confrontation with Karli where he does say like, because Karli's like, I'm not going to fight you, and she's like, I don't want to kill anyone that doesn't matter. And then it sounds nice, but John is like, so you think Lamar's life didn't matter? And I was like, oh, that's a good point, dude. And that just like pisses him off more. So that's why he kind of goes after Karli. But he tries to save them, and John kind of falls, and you know, he pulls it a little bit, but he's just not cut out to be Cap, and so he falls, and then the truck starts going over again, but it gets like stopped at the last second, and who saves them but the real Captain America, Anthony Mackie, and he's pushing up on the front of the truck, and he doesn't have super strength, but he does have like the booster going on his jetpack and his wings basically, and he sends out these two little drones that like attach to the vehicle and start boosting up, so he actually gets the truck up there. So even though he's not got the super strength, Anthony Mackie, or Sam's character, I should say, he's still using the technology in other ways to kind of make up for that lack of strength. So he kind of saves them there. And then eventually there's like a scene where they go, like, someone fire, it's George St. Pierre's character, I forget his character's name, but he was like the bad guy at the Winter Soldier from ages ago, where he fights Captain America. He fights Steve Rogers on the ship, and they're like fighting, and he's like, oh, not so tough without your shield or whatever. He's back now, which I thought was kind of weird to bring them back in, but he starts firing like gas, like tear gas almost into the section down below, so they have to kind of split up. So it's interesting because it's John Walker, and it's Sam Wilson and Bucky and Sharon, I think, who kind of split up underneath down chasing Karli down there. And there's like a scene where it's like kind of thriller or suspenseful, where Karli's going through, and she's like, David, is that you? And then it's Sharon Carter who shows up, and this is where we find out that Sharon Carter is the power broker, which I think was pretty obvious, you know, going through the episodes. But for her to be like, oh yeah, I'm the power broker, it's like, oh yeah, what does that mean exactly? I don't know. But Sharon is obviously like kind of playing both sides here, and she's got some different intentions. But she goes after, she's like, Karli dropped the gun, and they have a standoff where it's like Karli is pointing the gun at Sharon, and Sharon's got the gun at her, and then Anthony Mackie shows up, and she's like, wow, you really joined that patriotic bullshit. Like, that's what Karli says to Anthony, and he's like, you don't understand. He's like, it's not like that. And she's like, oh, okay. And they get in like an argument basically, and then like Karli's about to take down Sam. I forget how it happens, but like she gets like a gun at Sam, and she's like about to pull the trigger at Sam, and that's when Sharon actually shoots her, and they both fire at the same time. So Sharon takes a shot, but she ends up killing Karli, and so that's like a huge scene where Karli dies down there, and she says throughout the episode, like, if I die, it's okay, the movement goes on. So we kind of knew she was gonna die, but it's still a big impactful moment for her to like die and be like, yeah, she didn't really have the right. She had the right intentions, but she didn't perform the actions correctly. So you would have liked to maybe see her do a little bit more, but you know, her character was almost destined to die just because she wasn't willing to like side with Sam. She was always like, I have to kill, and I'll kill again if I have to. And so that kind of like drove her towards violence, and she just was unwilling to listen to reason. So she ends up dying, and then we get this scene where Anthony Mackie flies over to like the public, or like where the newscasters are, and he shows up. And guys, spoilers for I think it's Arkham Knight or Arkham City. I think it's Arkham City. The scene at the end of, I think it's the end of Arkham City. Again, spoilers. So if you haven't seen that, skip past this part. Joker dies, right? And Batman carries Joker out in his arms, and it's like really crazy, and it's the end of the game, and it's like this kind of beautiful moment. And this is exactly what I thought of, because Anthony Mackie's here and he carries Karli out, and he tried to save this girl, and he knew that like she could be reached, but like other powers, like Sharon had to shoot her to save his life, and she made a split-second decision, which I'm sure we're seeing a lot of in today's culture with the police and everything that's going on. So very relevant there. But he brings her out, and he puts her down, and he's like, okay, are you still going through with like the border patrol and all that? And he talks to like these government officials, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna stop the terrorists. And he's like, you gotta stop calling them that. He's like, and they're like, what else would we call them? And he's like, you understand that like you have the same power as like as a teenager, right? He's like, her cause, she believed in her cause. He's like, so many people believed in her cause that they were willing to go against the most powerful government in the world to do it. And it's like, damn, dude. And Anthony Mackie has this amazing speech where he's like, you know what? He's like, finally you understand our struggle. He's like, you know what it's like to be us, or to be me. And he says like, you understand that like I'm a black man representing the stars and stripes, right? And he's like, every time I pick up that thing, every time I pick up that shield, he's like, you understand that there are millions of people that hate me. He's like, do you understand that? He's like, but I keep doing it. And I'm like, wow, Anthony Mackie, let's go. And Falcon and Winter Soldier has touched on like Black Lives Matter and the racial stuff and all of that every episode. But I love that they just hit the nail on the head, dude, where Anthony Mackie is like, you know what, dude? I don't care if Isaiah Bradley told me that the world's not ready for a black Captain America. I don't care about any of this. He's like, you know what, dude? I'm here to do the right thing. And he's like, I know that people are hating me. Like he said, millions of people are hating me every time. Like, people do not want a black Captain America in this MCU universe. And it's like, and he's like, you know what, dude? I don't care. He's like, I can't let Isaiah's past hate set my future. Or like, he's like, you know what, dude? I'm doing what's right, and I'm going to be Captain America. And I'm like, wow, how good is that? How great is it that like he said that? And the news is running, of course, so everyone sees that, and he's like, I don't care, man. He's like, I'm still here. And he's like he goes on this whole speech, and I don't remember all of it, but he's like, the next Karli, he's like, we need to figure something out, because he's like, there's gonna be another Karli, and he's like, you don't want to see 2.0. Like, he's like, she had like radical beliefs, but we need to figure this out more, because the next Karli is waiting, and so he's like, we need to handle the situation better. So just him leading and talking to the governments and all that. And he's like, you guys have so much power. He's like, but you have as much power as you do, or like, I think he says like an insane government or something, or he says like, and a teenager. And he's like, it's just how you use it. And it's like, wow. So he's like, you just need to decide how you're going to use it. So they tell Cap, they're like, hey, there's one more Flag Smasher. He's in the harbor, but he's injured, but he's not dead. He's like, can you help? And Anthony Mackie goes, always. I'm like, let's go, dude. So he flies away. There's a brief scene with like Bucky and Sharon Carter, and they're like, hey, you need to get a hospital. And she's like, nah, not really, and blah, blah, blah. But then we get the Flag Smashers, who are being held captive because they got their helicopter taken down, and they're being loaded into this truck, and they're walking by, and there is a bomb that goes off, and we see like some dude who's waiting in the parking lot, and he's got like a trigger, and he blows up, and they're like, oh, he blows up the van, and all the other Flag Smashers are dead. We then cut to the Raft, which is the maximum security prison where Zemo is, and I think they were originally moving the prisoners there, but they end up dying. And Zemo like gives a look into the camera, and he just like relaxes, and it's like, dude, Zemo's pulling the strings even from the Raft, even from prison. He's pulling the strings. I don't know how he pulled it off after he got captured by the Wakandans, but like he clearly orchestrated that, and so that's like a big moment there. So we cut back to John Walker, and John Walker is meeting with Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, who's like his like lawyer, attorney, whatever, and she's like, hey, we got a new suit for you, and she's like, what is he doing in there? It's the helmet, and he comes out, and he comes out in a new suit, and it's like mostly black, and he's got like the American flag kind of there, and he's like, it's the same, it's just black. And they're like, it is, but it's not. And they're like, you're not like a US agent. And there's a scene where he's like, I'm back. He's like, I'm so back. He's like, I'm back, baby. And I'm like, all right, I kind of like this scene. And I'm like, I think it's Wyatt Russell. I'm like, I understand that you're kind of hated, but also you're kind of funny, but not really. You're also kind of annoying. Like, I hated your character a lot. So, but I like the scene where he's like, I'm back. And I'm like, well, kind of. But like, he's going to be working, I think, for the US, maybe like a covert ops or something. So he hasn't been like banished yet, but he did kind of help stop the Flag Smasher. So I guess he's kind of redeemed, but I don't know. We'll see. It sounds like he's sticking around though, so it'll be interesting to see if he shows up in like any future MCU movies for sure, because they didn't just kill him off or anything like that. So that was a good little scene to kind of wrap up his arc there. So we get a heartbreaking scene where Bucky goes over to like the old Asian man in the bar that he gets drinks with all the time, the one where his son died in the second episode, I think it was. And Bucky finally decides to tell him like, hey, your son wasn't lost, your son was murdered. And he's like, he tells him face to face, he's like, by the Winter Soldier. And he's like, and that was me. And it's like he's like tearing up when he says it, and the guy can't believe it. And it's like, man, and that's kind of like all he says, and he walks away, and it's crazy. It's just like good for Bucky to admit, he's like, hey man, that wasn't me, and that was the Winter Soldier. But he just owns up to it, and he's like, your son was murdered by the Winter Soldier, and he like, the guilt that he just has to like, kind of release that. So really great scene there. We then cut to Falcon, who goes to see Isaiah Bradley once again, and the guy at the door, like the son or whatever, the nephew, says like, what up, Black Falcon? And he's like, Isaiah is like, he's not Falcon anymore. He's like, but he is still black. And then they go around the garden, and he's like, I see what you did there, man. And he's like, I will say, he's like, you're special. And he's like, you're no Malcolm or no Martin. And he's talking about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., of course. He's like, but I see what you're doing. And he's like, that's fair. And they have a good conversation there. And Naki tells him he's got to keep the streak going. And then Falcon's like, I just did it. And not Falcon. Captain America, Anthony Mackie, is like, hey, I need you to come with me. Like, I want to show you something. And this is so cool because they go to the Steve Rogers Memorial, and where it's like got Steve and his pictures and everyone who fought for him. And Anthony Mackie, or Sam, he got a plaque dedicated to Isaiah Bradley, dude, because they erased him from history and they didn't write his name out. And he gets like a whole plaque and a statue of him, and he's like, now they're never going to forget what you did for this country. And I was like, wow, dude, that's so cool that he did that. And they have like a hug, and Isaiah's like ready to cry. And it's super, super emotional and great. And it's just like, man, how good can the show be? You know what I mean? Like, just so good. And I just want to say too, all of the action scenes in the finale, absolutely incredible. Like, just high-end movie. Like, anytime Falcon is going through, I didn't touch on this, guys. Falcon, like, I think when he hits the helicopter, when he's in the air, he's fighting George St. Pierre, and then he says bon voyage, and he throws his shield out the window, and then he jumps out the window, gets on his wings, and then he goes and like collects his shield with his magnet or whatever. And I'm like, oh my god, dude! Just the coolest Captain America you could ever think of. So yeah, at the very end here, guys. Sam and Bucky go back to like Sam's hometown, and they have like a barbecue and everything. They're celebrating, and Sam's looking out into the horizon, and Bucky like goes over and gives him a tap on the shoulder, and they're like best friends now, basically. And the music's playing, and they're having a good time. They walk away, and we get the final Captain America and the Winter Soldier title card, and what a way to end the series. Okay, guys, so before the score here, I just want to give a quick shout out too, because we do get a post-credit scene with Sharon Carter, and she's like in front of the same mandate that like John Walker went in front of, like the U.S. mandate or whatever. And they're like, oh, Sharon Carter, like your name has been like a part of us for so long, and they're like, we're here to restore your name, and we grant you full access to whatever. And they're like, welcome home, Sharon. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. And then she walks out. She makes a phone call, and she's like, hey, super soldiers are off the map, but she's like, we're going to have access to all the U.S.'s database or whatever. And I was waiting for her to say Hail Hydra, and she didn't say it. but I think it's a very big indication that she is definitely working two sides, and Sharon Carter may be the villain after all, and I think she's working for Hydra. They did say that parts of Hydra are still there, like throughout the series. But man, I wish they ended it with a Hail Hydra, because I was already like, what? And then she was just like, yeah, but we're gonna have access to this, and then she like walks away in front of the building, but she's got like an evil smirk, and she walks away, and there's like the American flag. But I'm like, oh man, all we needed was a Hail Hydra there to cap it off. But that is something to keep an eye on. Sharon Carter, probably not as good as we think she is, playing two sides as a double agent, so probably working with Hydra. But yeah, just a crazy way to end just a phenomenal series. With that being said, guys, I do not put this lightly when I say that this is the best MCU content we have ever gotten. The fact that they touch on the racial stuff, the fact that they put their foot down, where Anthony Mackie's like, you know what, dude, millions of people are hating me, and he's like, I don't even care, dude. He's like, I still come up here and represent the Stars and Stripes, and it's like, wow, that's awesome. The way that they touch on all that stuff is great. The action was movie-esque, dude. It was really like up there with some of their top stuff. But the emotional parts, just throughout the whole episode, were great. This is 1,000,000% a 10 out of 10, dude. It is just a perfect, it's about 45 or 50 minutes of television. They wrapped everything up nicely. John Walker came back. He was mad. He kind of redeemed himself. Now he's kind of working with the U.S., so that was cool. Karli died for her movement. We kind of knew that was going to happen. We knew she was probably an expendable character, but her character was really intriguing the whole time and interesting, and you saw why she was doing it, and she even says, like, I don't want to hurt anyone else when their lives don't matter, and she meant well by that. We see Anthony Mackie become the new Captain America and really put like a new era on, where it's like, dude, any of the MCU stuff now going forward, you're going to see Anthony Mackie in that dope suit, and he's proven he can be Captain America. And yeah, he doesn't have the serum, but man, he's making up for it in a big way. He's got all of the courage, and he fits right into that role. It's like Steve Rogers or Chris Evans was so good as Steve Rogers, and then you're like, well, how can he possibly be replaced? And that's a part of Steve Rogers that Captain America will never be replicated. But for Anthony Mackie to come in here and be the new Cap and set off this new era, you couldn't have picked a better character for that. Like, he's so good. I thought maybe they were gonna have Bucky be the new Cap a little bit during the series, but you can tell he just isn't. That's just not his character, and he wasn't ready for it. So, but Anthony Mackie, I mean, he's been helping people since his debut. I think he was like in a working for a crisis center or an Alcoholics Anonymous or something. Like, he was working when we first saw him in the MCU. He was helping people, and so that's all he's ever wanted to do. And that's why he became Falcon, and that's now why he became Captain America. And it's like, it's so cool that they mixed the new suit and the shield with his wings. And like, there's times where I think Karli was fighting him, and she like go to super punch him, and he puts the shield up, but because he's not strong enough, his wings come out, and his wings like help block him in too. So he's like got enough strength back. Yeah, the action, the score, all of the emotional moments hit so hard. I had full on body goosebumps, guys, during multiple scenes of this episode. Yeah, I think this is the best content the MCU has ever made. I'm blown away. I can't believe it. I'm so glad that they took a stand and they knocked it out of the park, and they really made these characters stick out so much. And it's like, I don't think of this as a side series. I think of this as a huge part of the larger MCU. I'm so glad that they did it, and I'm completely thrilled and blown away and just in awe of what the MCU was able to accomplish with this mini series here. So I'm sad to see it go, but I think they put a perfect bow on it, and yeah, just what a series. Okay, guys, that is it. That is the final episode of On Your Left. So thank you guys so much for joining me on this journey. Thanks for checking out Project Potter. I hope you guys enjoyed these reviews. Man, what a great series, and I'm just so thankful for the MCU. It really is fantastic, and just continues to go like up and up and up, and just strive forward. And it's funny because WandaVision was great but different, and this was way different, but like kind of your more action oriented based, but you know, it touched on a lot of the racial stuff that we didn't think it was going to touch on. So I'm so glad it went there. And then it's just like, now we have Loki coming up, and it's like, dude, that looks crazy. And now that they've just set the bar so high, where it's like WandaVision, Falcon, Winter Soldier, Loki, and now it's like you're kind of thinking like, yo, every couple months we need these MCU series because they're so good that now it's like, this is probably gonna be the new standard, because it's like we need something to kind of stick around. So I don't know, but I've had so much fun. I'm so glad I decided to review this, guys, because I'm gonna miss this show for sure. But I'm so happy that it kind of upgrades the MCU, even though it didn't need to be upgraded. But it just expands that universe and gives like a fresh breath of air to some characters that were kind of side characters. I mean, Bucky is a pretty big character, but Falcon definitely like gets a lot of screen time in this, and obviously like Anthony Mackie's status now is like a top tier Marvel character and a Marvel hero after he was like kind of maybe a side character in the other movies. So that's awesome. And yeah, thank you guys so much for checking out Project Potter. Thanks for checking out On Your Left. Again, I've had a blast doing this. Like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell notification, guys. Look out for the other content coming. We'll be here for all the other MCU content. So until next time, guys, On Your Left.